Hello, dear friends, to this edition of Special Interviews. Today we have with us Dr. Bakre Najmuddin from Nigeria. He is currently teaching at the National University of Science and Technology in Islamabad. I recently met him and asked him as to what difference has China's Belt and Road Initiative made to many of the African countries which have been reeling from poverty, backwardness, and underdevelopment.
Thank you for that question. I think it is more of a myth than a reality, because when you look at the manifestation of those debts, they translate into physical infrastructures, which of course tells that most of the debt or the loan gotten by from China doesn't go into the drain of corruption, unlike the Western loans that most of these African countries and Asian countries they get. So I think it is much more of a myth than the reality, and we can see the manifestation. We can see the development unfolding for a very long time to come. And I think this is the bifurcation or the big salient difference between the loan or the debt coming from the West and that coming from the Chinese, which is more of a overblown kind of a discourse in current international relations.
Okay, so in that context, when you say that that money that is coming from China is more helpful than detrimental to the interests of that country, now what difference has the Chinese loan or the Chinese economic assistance made to smaller African countries?
So in that way, one can see it again, like I said, it is what I refer to as the flattening of the world through infrastructural development. Development, as we know, has always been one of the key words since 1945, but the Chinese have revolutionized this concept of development. They're giving us a nuanced understanding of development through infrastructural development. For example, the development of a seaport, the development of airport, development of motorways, that has given facilities, the needed facilities to most of this third world or the countries in Africa and in Asia, and which in my opinion needs to be well appreciated than the money gotten from a particular institution, the Western institutions, which at the end of the day, the government, due to maladministration, could not be accountable for. But in terms of the Chinese loan, you see the infrastructure in place. It is not something that is blood. It's not something we can run away from. Every high school see it, that this is a motorway, this is an airport, this is a seaport. All of this infrastructure, they are kind of changing the life of the people. It is not just about the state-to-state relations, but it is also trickling down to people's life. So we see that manifestation going on in different parts of the world.
You're very also keen on and insisting that there is a difference of approach when it comes to the United States and its allies dealing with Asian and African countries and China, how China deals with these countries. What is that difference?
And my take on that is what my notion of the need-based world order, which we have experienced since 1945, unlike the Chinese service-based world order. So one is dictatorial and the other is a more of consensual, a more of dialogue, a more of relating with someone on the basis of equality. It is not on the basis of dictatorial relation, and I think this is a huge difference. And it is quite difficult for you to find any of the African countries claiming that that China is interfering in their domestic affairs. That has never been the case, despite the huge amount, the huge contribution the Chinese government there. And this also brings me to the notion why China is not giving acknowledgement to the NGOs. Number one, for so many reasons. They see them as the front, as the extension of neocolonialism. Instead, the Chinese government would want to come with development to the grassroots, to the people. So it is more of relationship. It is not transactional. It is very much relational in nature as compared to what we have seen since 1945.
But a lot of allegations of corruption have also accompanied this Chinese assistance that has come to the African or Asian countries. What do you say to that? Does China bear responsibility for that, or is it a national issue of every respective nation that receives those funds?
Yeah, I think one should be very honest in their assessment, which I actually agree to that question. There's been some degree of corruption in few of these African countries, or even in some Asian countries. But one has to look at the dynamics, the mechanism, the architecture of the Chinese operation, is in the sense that there is no room for corruption vis-a-vis, because the developmental fund comes direct from the Chinese government. So that means you have to be accountable, one. Number two is that there are certain instances where there will be corrupt, of course, officials among the Chinese corporations working abroad, and largely to speak is the inefficiency, or again, a demonstration of corrupt practices by these receiving countries. So more or less we can say it has to do with the receiving countries, not a little less of the Chinese corporations.